Hey everybody, from History 201, those were on Zoom. Apologize for that. The computer was broke, so couldn't even bring the slides or keep Zoom up as far as connectivity. Hopefully they'll get it fixed by tomorrow. Yesterday I talked about the requirements for week 4 writing assignment. That's the article I read from last week. All right. I'll go find it. There's a way to get you going with looking for one primary and one secondary source. I talked about, okay, so article, but also the illustration I showed. Topic is looking at illustration as a primary source and article as secondary, but look at what secondary sources the writer of that article wrote. So you get to find out what it was. I talked what that article was. Keyword: American history, Atlantic world, indigenous. Uh, you can go to Google Scholar. There's a Google Scholar link in the black bar on the left pane, but also library website. Uh, go to search bar, keywords, important keywords. Uh, but also click on databases under the search bar, university website, and then go to JSTOR, JSTOR.org. A lot of other academic journals, articles are there, and also do that same keywords. Okay. Really, I didn't really get into what's supposed the chapter 5, I believe, right? For this week, not until tomorrow. I talked about the British Empire and what I called state of empire. Really, where was the British Empire at the time, other than the American colonies, more specifically India, and really that where pretty much colonization, their process involved with that, socially, economically, most especially economically, and where else they were other than the Caribbean, uh, but other places, well, in Canada, for example. The impact of the 7 Years' War on Britain at the time, as you well know, they were they weren't making a profit, essentially. Where were they going to get money to recover the losses? And somebody came up brought in class yesterday, the loss of ships, and really that's the biggest connection of their overseas empire, especially to Britain. From Britain to India, but other places in the world. So that was really what I talked about. That was kind of the motivation of the startup of where did they get that money from? Well, they got it from raising taxes, right? Hence the beginning of taxation without representation. So I kind of talked on both sides of that, really where this ideology, this meant part here in the mind, where did the concept of representation come from? And really more philosophical, all right, where like Thomas Paine came together with that consideration. Some influences before that, like with the Enlightenment, for example. All right, but that's where I only went, and of course, just talked about what part of trade was there that the British Empire did tax American colonies, most specifically sugar, and tea. Tea was something that was a craze in Britain, and going to the American colonies. But as the textbook described, it wasn't raising the taxes, it was a tax on what was being imported into the American colony, well, in Boston. Okay. But so both sides there, and I kind of general like to see where somewhat of an idea where the British Empire was at the time, because they really weren't at their apex empire until after the beginning of the 19th century, towards the mid part of the 19th century. Uh, that's when the sun never set on the British Empire, honestly. Uh, but anyway, so that was it for yesterday. Tomorrow, again, we'll go into some American Revolution, to Articles Confederation. You are going to work on a topic for this week. Week 5 and 6 is a build upon to your midterm. Pick a topic, and the writing assignment structures requirements haven't changed. It's just where you bring in, you do your draft in class. I can look at it as best I can. You upload it by the end of class to Blackboard. Okay, I'm going to be looking at it as till the next week 5, but somewhere between there, I'll be looking at it and giving you feedback by the time you come back or go to week 5, 6. All right. So these are the steps going towards your midterm. All right. As you see, the midterm is going to be, the big thing to some extent. Okay. Excuse me. So I hope that kind of clears things up. Again, I don't fret too much. So this is the shout out to you guys who were on Zoom yesterday. So y'all have a good one.